Welcome to Almost Here, Round the Corner Future Technology podcasts with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies poised to transform our lives for better or worse are the focus of this podcast. Almost here means these technologies are now here and starting to be used, or just around the corner, from Bitcoin to artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.
Hello and welcome to Future Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Juliette Lamar, and I have with us today Matthew Howarth. He is the Director of Business Development at ShoesizeMe. Welcome, Matthew.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. So I'm interested, what is ShoesizeMe?
Essentially, we've been around since 2012, and we are the only footwear-specific solution on the market for helping retailers and brands to kind of take control of the chaos that is footwear sizing, or apparel and footwear sizing. We're footwear specific, but it's a chaotic problem. It's an industry-wide issue, and this is essentially our goal is to cure this problem.
It's so funny. I had no idea that this was such a large problem. Can you go into detail a little bit about what the issues are? What are the challenges that are in this?
Absolutely, yeah. So, it stems from the fact that there is no industry standards in sizing. So, every brand has their own sizing, because of the lack of an industry standard and the lack of data available to said brands and retailers, everyone's kind of working off guesswork. And so it's very difficult to determine what is, a UK or a US 8 or a 9, because you have nothing to benchmark against. So if you're launching a brand, or even if you're an established brand, it's very difficult to know where you sit in terms of sizing. And this goes down even to a model level. So it's not just brand to brand that there's irregularities, but even within brands, you will have irregularities in sizing. So depending on the type of model it is, a 43 in EU will not necessarily always be a 43. And this is a huge pain for brands and retailers. It's online, especially, because it's a huge barrier to conversion. If you imagine that, when you're trying to buy a car or you're trying to buy a book, essentially once you've driven the traffic to your e-commerce and that person has an interest in buying, there's no barrier to conversion there. Whereas with footwear, you're having to convert people twice. So you've got them to your product page, and then you have this extra step, which is the size selection. Historically, the only size help that's been available, as I'm sure you know, is the kind of standard universal charts, where you have this kind of comparison of EU, UK, US, and this is all that's really existed for consumers. It doesn't work. In fact, it turns people off. So we did a recent study that suggested that over 90% of people drop out of the sales funnel on an e-commerce site once they open that size chart, purely because it's so confusing and people, sort of lose interest at that point. So this is, the conversion is one side of it, and returns is the other. Footwear has the highest return rate in e-commerce, and this is a huge pain for footwear brands and retailers.
Now that you mention it, I'm thinking to myself how I shop online, and I think, okay, I'm a standard size 6 in shoes, and I'm a smaller, extra small in clothing, but then when I do get to, if it's a company I don't know, when I get to the checkout and I'm thinking, okay, what size is it? I'll go back and I'll read the comments, and that's really what I rely upon heavily, and I never really realized that, but I'll go in the comments and it'll say, oh, I'm a size 6 and this fits really big or whatever. And then I kind of take that information from other customers and then I apply it to what I think my size will be. But a lot of times I will send back products for footwear or for clothes, simply because they don't fit properly. And I would much rather still go into a brick and mortar shop to try on things, because I know that then I will like it.
Exactly. And, myself, I own, across different brands, I maybe have 4 different sizes. It's a huge issue. And what you just described is exactly what happens. You open this size select and you're not sure what size you are. So what do? Either you buy 2 or 3 pairs in different sizes and you have to return both at great cost to the retailer, or you go offline where you can be sure that it fits well. So either way, for an e-commerce business, you're losing there.
So how exactly are you going to solve this problem? How does this work?
It's an excellent question. So we originally started off, to give you a bit of context, as a 3D scanning technology. Our CEO has a long history of working in the footwear industry, making sort of orthotics for professional athletes, and so had become very aware of this issue that, there's this huge barrier in e-commerce. So we start off with the 3D scanning technology, very quickly realized that although it's fantastic for giving accurate measurements of feet, there's very little correlation between your size in sort of centimeters and the shoe you wear. So footwear is a very subjective experience, and most people wear the wrong size shoe. And so what we decided to do was to move away from this model and work on a data-driven solution. So really, the only way to understand what size to recommend somebody is by understanding what they wear already. This is the only accurate way to do it. So essentially, it's taking size out of the equation, and it's more about fit. And so what we've done is we've built the biggest database in the footwear industry. We have over 4,000 brands covered at the moment, and over 1 million footwear shoe models. And essentially, we understand on a profound level the relationship in terms of size and fit between all these different models. So if you were to use the ShoesizeMe tool on one of our customer sites, you would tell us a shoe that you own at home and the size in which you wear that shoe, and we can tell you the size in the shoe that you're trying to buy. On a very simplistic level, that's how we work.
And you're just hoping also that your customers know how a shoe is supposed to fit. Because I think a lot of times people maybe don't, you're saying people wearing the wrong size shoes, maybe they don't even understand how the shoe is supposed to fit because there's so many different factors. Exactly,
right. So, I mean, what we do is we take the kind of the mean, I guess. So we know how 90% of people wear this particular shoe and how that associates with this particular model. So, I don't know, from an Adidas Samba to a Nike Air Max, we know how most people who wear an 8 in the Adidas Samba will relate to that Air Max, and so we can make the recommendation based off this. So it's using user data.
Do you have any success stories that you'd like to share with companies that have implemented your software and are seeing an improvement in their customer satisfaction?
Absolutely. So, I mean, the benefits of working with us are kind of wide-ranging. The core benefits we look at are an increase in the conversion rate. So people who interact with the size advisor are much more likely to convert. We see a big reduction in returns, specifically size-related returns. People spend more money, so when they have the confidence that their size is accurate, they buy more expensive shoes and more pairs of shoes. We also have a really important impact on customer acquisition and retention. So, as an example of this, 80% of people who return their first purchase with a brand or a retailer won't buy with them again. So this is a really, that first purchase with a new customer is really important that you get it right. And if you don't have sort of accurate and consistent size help, this is not bound to happen, but your chances are vastly increased. So we've conducted some case studies with some of our partners recently. We did a 3-month A/B test with Goertz, one of our German retailers, that showed we'd added over 500,000 euros in additional net revenue, and a yearly over that period, a 150,000 euro return just purely through return reductions. So this is sort of, I guess, the main KPI that we look at in terms of how we provide value to our partners is in terms of the incremental revenue uplift that we add to their business.
That's fantastic. So if a shoe company wants to implement this service into their website or whatnot, how easy is it for them to get started? What's needed?
It's very straightforward. So it's a 3-step process. First of all, we just simply need their footwear data. So this comes in the form of a product feed, which is just a list of their portfolio, the shoes that they sell online. After this, we take historical purchase and return data. This helps us to train the algorithm and also, understand how their shoes behave on a size level. We don't take any, personal information. It's nothing to do with the customer. It's purely being able to match a purchase to a return. And the final step is a bit of JavaScript on the product pages. So the vast majority of the work actually is done on our end in terms of mapping and structuring their data against the rest of the database. And after this, it's a simple bit of coding for their developers, and we're good to go.
And then as a consumer, do I need to go onto ShoesizeMe prior to shopping, or is it going to be just available when I go to the website of the shoes I want to buy?
Exactly. So, we work on a B2B purely. So if the only way you could interact as a user is by one of by shopping on one of our partner sites.
Got it. Well, that seems very straightforward and simple, and something that I would utilize all the time. And you're just specifically shoes. Are you planning to expand into apparel as well?
No, we're not. So we're the only footwear specific solution on the market. There are some sort of, in inverted commas, universal solutions available. The reason we're purely footwear sort of focused is that, I think apparel and footwear are inherently different. They have a different set of challenges and therefore require a different solution. So yeah, there's enough on our hands with just footwear, to be honest.
Absolutely. So are there any other interesting things that you're working on currently within ShoesizeMe to advance and overcome some challenges that we might see in the next 3 years or so?
So, I mean, the long-term goal of ShoesizeMe is to essentially become the industry standard in footwear sizing. So to be able to digitalize footwear sizing, so that every pair of shoes you own or you go to buy will have a ShoesizeMe stamp in it saying, this is a certified ShoesizeMe size 8.5. This is the long-term ambition, because it's simply, the way the industry is now, it's retailers and brands are powerless. Unless you're a Zalando or an Amazon or somebody like this who has access to that level of market data, you simply can't know how, or you have no benchmark for your sizing. So this is our kind of long-term ambition. In the short term, we want to work with brands and retailers to help them cure the most immediate problems they have, which is providing sort of compelling, easy to understand, intuitive size advice on their web shops. In terms of more, I guess, short-term kind of advances in the technology, the algorithm is always improving. There's always new releases of this coming, and we're working on a very exciting new project, which is essentially a data platform for footwear brands and retailers to be able to benchmark their own sizing against other brands and retailers from the market, so they can understand where they sit in terms of the global market and use this data to feed back to their manufacturing and their production teams, so they can sort of essentially cure their own sizing issues internally. And as we do this, as it spreads across the market, then this helps us to achieve our long-term goal of sort of ironing out sizing and standardizing it across the industry.
That would be fantastic, and I love the idea of a ShoesizeMe stamp of approval, so that even if I'm just shopping in a retail store or online, either way, I can just look and really quickly be like, okay, I know I'm going to be 6 in ShoesizeMe, and I just don't even have to think about that. That would be fantastic and just so useful to the consumer.
Exactly. This is the long-term goal. So yeah.
How did you get involved with ShoesizeMe? Give me a little bit of your background and where you're coming from.
Absolutely. So as I've probably given away from my accent, I'm English. I studied in Manchester, which is a lovely place, but it's very wet. And so I moved to Barcelona as soon as I could. I'd always fallen in love with this city, and I've worked in sort of IT technology sales for the last sort of 8-9 years. Barcelona is fast becoming kind of one of the big hubs for startups and technology in general in Europe. And so it was a very attractive combination of, good work opportunities, but also a fantastic place to live. And it helped me to escape from the rain, which is always a good thing. And so here I am. I sort of worked in corporate sales for quite a while, and kind of had enough of the grind. And had always kind of been interested in startups, always been quite entrepreneurial. And really, that side of startups really appealed to me. The ability to kind of really have a pronounced impact on what you're doing and see the results of your work, and the agility involved with it. So about 3 or 4 years ago, I made the switch to startups and found ShoesizeMe. So it's been a fantastic project to be involved in so far, and I'm very excited about where we're going in the future.
I love also the camaraderie that comes with startups. Because when you're working on a project as a startup, a lot of times you have a small team, and it's not, this is your job only, and this is your job, and let's go do our jobs. It feels like more everyone is working together, using every part of their brain and their assets to create a product. And it's a lot more of a we atmosphere instead of a me atmosphere. And I think that that's so appealing in startups. Absolutely.
I completely agree. When it's done right, it's fantastic. And I think it really gets the best out of people. And like you say, it's an environment where people can flourish and find out things they didn't even know they were good at, I think. Whereas I think in more just traditional roles, maybe, you're quite pigeonholed. This is your role, you do this repetitively, and you don't have much room for growth other than maybe, a couple of promotions. Whereas, I think certainly startups with the right leadership, I think is very important. but yeah, it's a great environment to work in, and I think you learn a lot about yourself, and absolutely, you rely on the strength of the team. Without everybody pitching in and everybody wearing, a few different hats, it's very difficult to achieve, the long-term ambitions.
And like you said, you're much more creative as well, because you are wearing different hats that you may never have worn before, even thought to wear, and then you find these talents that within yourself you never knew existed. It's fantastic.
Exactly. It really is. Yeah, it's a very rewarding environment.
So if people want to start implementing ShoesizeMe into their websites and whatnot, how do they get started? What's the best way to connect?
Email me or our sales team. So you can book a demo online at ShoesizeMe, and we'll be in touch within a couple of hours, and we can set you up with everything you need.
Fantastic. And it's ShoesizeMe or it's ShoesizeMe.com. Either works?
No, not it's just .me. Yeah.
Just .me. Okay, so Shoesize.
www.shoesize.me. Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic.
And
well,
get in touch.
Matthew, thank you so much for coming on. Yeah, thank you for coming on, and thanks
my absolute pleasure.
For
very much
shining a light on the shoe industry. I had no idea it was such a problem, but now that I think about it, I'm like, yes, please provide the solution for me.
Well, I think that in a nutshell is kind of the problem with what we're trying to do, is that for a long time people have kind of just accepted this as the status quo. Returns are a part of e-commerce business. There's nothing we can do about it. And so it's sort of an element of education in that. And this was one of the biggest challenges we faced, really, is overcoming this kind of idea that you can't do anything about them, that this is just the nature of the beast. Yeah, this is kind of where we are today. Well,
cheers to finding a solution and really condensing and solving this problem once and for all.
Absolutely.
All right, Matthew. Well, this is Matthew Howarth. He is the Director of Business Development at ShoesizeMe. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. This has been Juliette Lamar with Future Tech Podcast.
You have been listening to Almost Here, Around the Corner Future Technology Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Subscribe to this podcast, post a review, to discover more future technologies that are poised to transform our lives for better or worse, such as Bitcoin, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.